here I am thinking, oh, I've left myself with so much room to have a nice discussion about all the little details of the ending of this arc. There's so much, it's impossible. I have so many notes, and that's with me skipping over scenes. I do love discussing themes, and Togashi said, here's a story for you. Apologies in advance for the length of this video. Treat it like a podcast. Have your earbuds in while you're cleaning that section of your house that you've been neglecting. And let's talk about the final section of the Chimera Ant arc, where everything happened so fast, but so much happened that it's a mountain. It's a mountain and amazing. So I'll leave the links to the first two videos where I discussed the beginning of the arc and the middle of the arc. Now we're doing the end of the arc. So we left off where Shoot is near death, Knuckle is fighting Yupi, and Morel is on his way to try to find somebody that can help in this situation. Gon shouts, which leads him to Killua. It's funny because I've always kind of considered Knuckle to be a pretty well-rounded character. I mean, he's a really emotional guy, but he seems to think through things very well. And it's interesting to see him in this section of the arc where he's kind of throwing away his reasoning and rationale to just fight because his friend was dissed, because his friend wasn't given the respect that he felt he deserved. And you have the ants who are gaining their memories and gaining agency and fighting against the system that they were born into, who are rejecting some of their more animal instincts and learning empathy and learning to care. And then you have Knuckle, who earlier on in this arc said, I don't want to just view them as creatures to exterminate. I want to be able to get to know them and understand them before I decide what I need to do. And then here he is, where he's been reduced down to his base instincts of you dissed my friend, I kill. And now he's attacking Yupi. And then on the other side of it, Yupi is gaining more understanding, and he's becoming a more well-rounded and thoughtful person as he's in this fight too. When the building starts to collapse and we see Yupi's enraged form, and then you have Knuckle saying things like, I'm sorry, Morel, we're idiots, because he's aware that what he's doing is stupid, that what he's doing is a big mistake, but he can't stop himself from doing it because he's so caught up in his rage. And then you have Yupi, who is taking his more indulgent power and learning to hone it and control it so that he can better serve his king. And it's just so interesting to see the two, the humans and the ants who are changing in this war in completely different ways. We see the humans spiraling downward, and we see the ants gaining more agency and more control over their base instincts. So Yupi is going to kill Knuckle because he does have the best, and he does get the best of him in this fight. But because Netero, who I know I'm saying it wrong, someone even sent me a pronunciation and I still can't get it right, so I'm just gonna call him Mel in this review, and I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do at the moment. So Mel, when he went and sought out someone that could help, apparently it was the right choice because Knuckle is about to die, and he finds Killua and brings him in, and Killua's lightning attack was amazing. I love this line. I'm pretty ticked off right now, so I'm just going to take it out on you. Killua is such a composed character. He's someone that really always has this hardened poker face. He always kind of has the same exterior as he's analyzing the situation, and no matter what he's feeling, we rarely actually see it on his face. And this is one of those scenarios where he walks in with the same look on his face as normal, but because of what he says, we're aware of how much what Gon has done to him has affected him. Gon taking out his anger on Killua, and after all that Killua has done for him and all that Killua has sacrificed and so shown how much he cares, and Gon just turning on him when he didn't know where to direct his anger, and he just directs it at his friend. And Killua holds back, and rather than engaging in a fight with Gon, rather than yelling back and saying, I obviously care about you, I obviously care about this situation, he holds back, he lets Gon take it out on him, and then he goes to handle another situation, and he's like, I can take out my anger here. And I just really hurt for this kid who's been through so much, and he's he's actually on an upward trajectory, unlike a lot of the characters, a lot of our lead cast. He's doing so well, and yet he still is having to deal with all this turmoil and pain as his friend's going through it because he hurts for him, but also as his friend is taking out his anger on him, and it just kills me. Ugh. And then we also have the battle between Morel and Pouf, where Morel has Pouf in that smoke cocoon, and his battle isn't necessarily fighting his nature like Knuckle is. His battle is trying to figure out the right choice in this war. His struggle is trying to figure out the abilities of his enemy and trying to decide what the best move is in order to continue to hold him or whatever he needs to do here. His battle is to overcome Pouf manipulating him and trying to waste his time. So this is where we find out that Pouf is able to split himself into so many different pieces. He can occupy multiple conversations and situations in his many different pieces. He's able to, he can, even his, not copies, but his not core form can tangibly interact with things. He can fight, he can have conversations, he can have totally normal interactions, and there's nothing we can do to defeat him unless we find his core. So Pouf gets away, Morel's left standing, Shoot's been disappeared, who knows where he is at the moment, and now Knuckle and Yupi are continuing their fight in front of Morel, so now Morel is involved. And I love, the one reason why I love these fights so much is because not only are they cool, not only are they drawn really well and it's fun, but they're so smart. I love this scene where Morel has a bunch of smoke copies of himself, and Yupi's just punching through them, trying to find the real one, much like Pouf. I love how similar their abilities are in that they have a very similar, very overwhelming ability to their enemy. So Yupi's mentality is, I just gotta punch through them all because eventually I'm going to find your core. I'm going to find the real one of you. It's not a core, it's not the same thing. When Morel says, "You finally get it, sucker," there never was a real one. And then Knuckle comes out and punches Yupi, and then Yupi calls him a liar, and he's like, duh, of course there was a real one. And I love that. I love how cunning that is. I love how smart that is, that he's lying in the middle of a fight to trip Yupi up, to make him think that there's actually no hope in this fight, but no, the real one was right there the whole time. I love how smart these fights are. It's not just who can punch harder, it's who can think faster. Pouf does end up finding Gon and Pitou, and Pouf is planning on just attacking Gon from behind, but Pitou begs him not to because they're aware that Gon knows that Pouf is in the room and it would destroy everything. So I spoke a lot about Pitou in the last review, and I don't want to just repeat myself, but I love this character so much. I love to see the ways that each character, enemy and the people that are on our side, or the people that we're following. I love seeing how much each and every one of them changes, and seeing Pitou change with the king, because Pitou's loyalty is to King the person, and so as King changes, Pitou changes too. Their values, what matters to them, all completely shifts alongside King, and the fear that we see in this character each time something interrupts them and each time something new develops, this fear that they won't be able to actually protect Komugi like they're dedicating their life to do. It's fascinating to watch. And so anyway, so Pitou tells Pouf the story. Pouf figures out where King is, separates himself, goes off to the king. Cut to King and Netero. So King doesn't want to fight. He wants to have a conversation. He wants to sit down and talk, but Netero wants to fight. And I could spend the entire video here on this one single fight between these two, because one, it's awesome, but two, the conversations that we could deconstruct and overanalyze it's incredible. So King opening up by saying, hey, I've changed, I've learned. Some humans deserve to live, and you're one of them, or you may be. And Netero saying, cool, I'm one of them, but everybody else isn't. not good enough. And he's right, that's not good enough. But then King goes on to talk about, like, look at your world, look how broken it is. Look at the people starving. Look at the way things are. Look at your broken world. I want to fix it. I have plans to make it better. Yes, I'm going to use power and fear to control things at first, but I am going to make the world better. He says he'll use power at first, yes, but my goal is to protect the weak that deserve to live. That deserve to live. So while he's grown somewhat, he's changed somewhat, he's learning that humans they do have value, that they are worth something, but it's still a pick and choose. It's still which ones bring value to me, which ones have I determined are worthy to live, and which ones are not. And it's such a complex emotion that we could just deconstruct and overanalyze for a really long time because it's not straightforward, because he's still wrong, because he still wants to go ahead with his plans at this point. He still wants to do this culling that's going to turn some people into mindless soldiers and kill off loads and loads of people, but the ones that he deems worthy will stay. Yet, we also have the other side of the conversation where he's not entirely wrong. Our world is broken. The way humans interact with the world and with each other is broken in many, many ways. And it's interesting to think, like, we're at the top of the food chain. So we control a lot with the way animals are treated as we're getting dairy or as we're getting meat, like the way that they're hoarded together and treated with such cruelty, or the way animals are tested on for certain products, or even the human rights issues with fast fashion. Like, there's so many issues with the way certain things function, and the king is looking at those things and he's saying, hey, your world's broken, I want to make it better, but his way is still causing so much harm. But when a species comes into play that is now at the top of the food chain, they bump us down and they say they're definitively more powerful than us, and they say, I'm going to choose which humans are allowed to live and which ones are food for me. Are they wrong by being at the top of the food chain now and doing that too? But it's happening to us now? But yet what he's doing, this culling of humans, he's still wrong. But there's so many little conversations happening within just this one conversation. It's brilliant. And throughout the whole arc, the themes that Togashi is laying down with humanity and with people changing and finding their agency or spiraling, and these discussions around these other beings, it's brilliant. It's all brilliant. And I could spend forever right here. But I must move on. And there's definitely a side of Netero that just enjoys the fight. You know, he's been looking for this perfect fight, much like Hisoka, different from Hisoka, but much like Hisoka, he's been looking for this perfect fight for so long. He's been looking for the most powerful enemy to be able to go up against. And there's definitely a side of him that's loving it just for the fight. But I think that there's a lot more going on with him too, because I really think that Netero has, it's true. It's not what I think, it's what's there. I think Netero has seen the humanity in King when he walked in on him holding Komugi, and when he is sitting down and saying, I don't want to fight you, I want to have a conversation, and he's having like a really real conversation that's flawed. His philosophy is flawed, but he's not wrong entirely. And Netero clearly sees the humanity in King, and it's something like that conversation between him and Killua's granddad when he was like, this isn't what I signed up for. And Netero was like, yeah, this isn't what I thought it would be either. And he's clearly seeing the humanity, but he doesn't seem to want to. He doesn't want to have this conversation with King. He just wants to fight him. And even whenever King is complimenting him, when King is fighting Netero and he's impressed by him and he's offering him genuine praise, and it makes Netero so mad. It fills him with rage that he would be given a compliment by King. And why is that? Is it because it's hard for him to see King show this vulnerability and progress? It would be easier for him if King were just a mindless, evil killing machine that must be exterminated, rather than someone that can be negotiated with, bargained with, that can change, that we could learn to live in harmony with them if we just talk together and work together a little bit more. But Netero doesn't want to have that conversation. He doesn't want, and he's told, you know, that his job is to exterminate them. But Netero doesn't want that to be on the table. He just wants it to be a cut and dry, black and white, easy decision. I fight him, I kill him, I save humanity. Not he might be able to be on our side if I would sit down and have this conversation. Anyway, let's talk about the fight, because Netero does goad King into having a fight because he knows his name and that is of extreme importance to him. So Netero tells him, I know your name, fight me for it. And that works. Best fight ever. I know I'm new to manga. I know that there's a lot of fights I haven't seen, but this one blows everything I've seen out of the water. Not only is it visually so stunning, but Togashi did such a good job of showing the importance of it, showing the power behind each move, showing how fast things were moving despite taking his time on drawing these panels in such elegant ways. So here I am trying to study the panel because it's so gorgeous, but yet I'm feeling the urgency to keep moving because I know what a high stress situation this is. There's so much power between these two people. And the fact that Netero is losing limbs and forcing his body to continue on and really not missing a step and continuing to, just so cool. And King is taking all this damage from this incredible power, this incredible force, yet he's not actually being harmed. He's brushing all of this stuff off. And it's just like, this man, how can we defeat him? I'm feeling the epicness of this battle, but I'm also feeling the terror of, if Netero can't do it, what can? Cut to Yupi and Knuckle, who are both showing incredible personal progress as they continue to fight. Yupi wants this banker taken off of him, and he's trying to bargain with Knuckle to get it off of him. And both Mel and Morel don't want him to do it, because if so, what do we do after that? How do we ruin our entire plans. But because Yupi and Knuckle are seeing the humanity in one another, they reach this bargain where Yupi is seeing the value in humans and he doesn't want to needlessly exterminate them. So he agrees, I won't kill you if you take this off of me. And then Knuckle can't see him as something to exterminate anymore, which was a line that really hit me because, again, earlier in the arc, he says, I don't want to view them as just something to exterminate. I want to learn about them before I make that decision. So here he is saying that, and then digressing down into this rage-fueled, impulsive behavior that could potentially throw everything away, that could potentially get him killed. And he does see them as just creatures to exterminate. But then, as their fight continues on, he goes back to the position of, I can't see them as just creatures to exterminate anymore. It's so cool to see him just kind of come around full circle in this short span of time. Speaking of Pouf and Gon, and Pitou decides to go off to fight Knuckle, and Pouf goes off to fight Knuckle, and Pitou is left panicking again in that same position, but this time just begging, please don't punish Komugi for this. Please don't attack her right now because I'm going to keep up with our deal. I'm sorry he didn't, but I'm still here. Please don't attack. And that fear from the creature that has instilled such extreme fear and terror in so many of our characters. And then here Pitou is being filled with such terror because Gon is threatening what Pitou cares about. So Gon just responds with heal her 10 minutes faster. And then our deal is good. Otherwise, I kill her. And that's another bit that I could just analyze. I could just go down that rabbit hole for a really long time. But we've got too much to cover here. It's just interesting to see Gon spiral into the type of person that he's directly confronted so many times. Like, so furious at people who would harm someone he cares about, including Pitou themselves. Gon is saying, how could you care about this girl when you didn't care about someone that mattered to me? And then here he is saying, I will mercilessly kill this girl that I know nothing about, that I know for a fact is valuable to someone else. I will do it without blinking if you don't give me what I want. It's just so interesting to see him become who he hates. So Gon says that he wants to go alone with Pitou to heal Kite, and poor Killua. So they go alone, and that completely empty panel, except for the characters, where Kite says, you have worked with me. I'm not going to lie to you. This man is dead, and I cannot heal him. I don't know. It's not like the mentor character that dies off, that gets killed off, and then it elicits some sort of response in our lead. It's not like that's unheard of, but I just didn't expect it. I just didn't see, you know what? I didn't see anything coming. I didn't see anything. There's not a single thing in this arc that I called. I did not, for 1 second, expect Kite to be dead. I thought that he would be revived. I don't know why. I guess I was tricked by Gon's relentless hope. And that hope still isn't even dead just yet. After Pitou tells him that, he still believes it when Pitou calls on Dr. Blythe, and Gon looks up with hope, and he's like, of course, Pitou's still gonna try. But they heal themselves instead. And when Gon realizes that Pitou isn't even gonna try to heal Kite, that all of this was completely pointless, that there was no hope for healing Kite, he transforms into the self, the point in his life where he is powerful enough to kill Pitou. And in that he agrees or sacrifices. The exchange here is that he can never use N again. And Gon's rage here, where he doesn't just kill Pitou, but he actually beats and beats and beats them until they're long past dead, and he's just brutalizing a body because he's so filled with rage that he can't stop. And when Killua gets there, when he arrives on scene, and then Gon loses his arm, and he turns to Killua and he says, it's okay, I actually feel better now, because with losing my arm, I'm a little bit more like Kite. And it speaks so strongly to the truly desperate state of mind that he's in. I'm sure there are a million videos out there already on the psychology of Gon and on analyzing this transformation and everything that happens there, but I watched this scene in the anime last night, and it was even more emotional there, just with the voice acting and seeing it all play out, seeing the pain that Gon's in and how he completely surrenders it, and surrenders a lot of the future that he could have had just so that he can harm this one individual that's harmed him, is not the direction I thought the story would take at all. I mean, I expected Gon to have an unraveling. I did not expect this. And through all this that's going on, I also just can't help reflecting on poor Komugi, because in this war that's going on, Komugi is being carried around like a rag doll, threatened, attempted murder by Pouf, bargained with, treated as a tool of war, treated as a bargaining chip or something to be threatened if one side doesn't do what the other side wants. This poor girl that just wanted to play a game with her friend. I mean, initially she was brought there and threatened, but at the moment her personal view on the situation is, I just want to play a game with my friend. But instead, no one is viewing her as a human. Well, except for King. Almost no one is viewing her as a human. Almost everyone is viewing her as an object in war. Something to protect, something to defend, something to bargain with, something to use as a threat. And I just feel so bad for her. Anyway, now we'll cut back to the fight between Netero and King. And as the fight goes on, this is my kind of interpretation of this situation. And that's that Netero wanted to kill King one-on-one. He wanted to kill him in a battle, not having to activate the bomb. But at the end of the day, he knew that he was going to win no matter what. And it is kind of interesting to think about this situation from the perspective of if Netero hadn't been able to bring King far, far away from everyone else. If Netero had confronted King in the building, or if King had attacked him in the building, or if Netero never even got to King and he was killed by, say, Yupi, which I seriously doubt would happen because Netero is a boss. But assuming he stumbles and smacks his head on a rock and dies, he is fully aware that if he dies without removing King from this building, not only he is dying, but all of his comrades die. And potentially, I mean, I don't really know where the castle is in relation to civilization, but I do know that there is a massive army of brainwashed humans who have done nothing wrong, who would be casualties of war. Netero is aware that he's potentially killing himself. Well, he knows he's killing, and his comrades, and all these innocents, if he can't get King far, far away. And I do find it interesting, this setup that they have with this bomb. I understand why they feel that the ants must be exterminated. They've done some horrific crimes in a very short period of time, and it totally makes sense that they entered this war thinking evil killing machines must exterminate. But it is interesting to me that Netero comes in with this bomb knowing how much damage he could make if he doesn't accomplish getting King away. So Pouf and Yupi see the explosion, they realize what just happened, and I think the line was they lost any humanity they had in that moment, turning completely to ants, because in that moment, seeing their leader die, they were like, all right, all humans die now. They were able to find King, they were able to revive him by letting him consume parts of them, which is interesting. This whole King becomes stronger when he consumes someone strong. Not exactly how I thought this was gonna pay off. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect it. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, this is an epic fight between King and Netero. If after this amazing fight and this horrifying explosion, after all of this has happened, if King walks free, I don't know what we can do with the story from here on out. What could kill him from here? Another epic fight that's just a little bit more epic is not gonna be satisfying. So when he was revived, I didn't expect it. I didn't know what we could do from here. I can tell you that I didn't expect him to die quietly with the person he cared about most. I think that it's a really cool story element, that something that's a core piece of who the ants are, consuming other beings in order to feed themselves or make themselves more powerful, that this core piece of what they are ended up making King lose a piece of himself, at least for a period of time. It made him confused, and it made him unsure of who he was or what he cared about or what piece of him that was very important to him was missing. And his own people, specifically Pouf, but Yupi went along with it, his own guard who he trusted so much, used that weakness, used that vulnerability to manipulate and lie to him. Because Pouf, while Pitou is embracing King's changes and changing along with him, Pouf is rejecting them and wants Meruem to be king. But as he's changing and as he's growing, Pouf is feeling left behind and feeling like the changes that Meruem are making are not good for him, that he deserves to be more. He deserves to be what the ideal that Pouf has in his head of King. And it's just interesting to see this thing that is a core piece of who they are and their motivation for the atrocities that they've committed, that very thing could very well have been his undoing. It could have been the thing that destroyed him. So Meruem wants to get back to the castle so he can figure out what piece of himself he's missing, and Pouf is freaking out because he doesn't want his king to find out about him, his true self, and the things that he cares about and the person that he's becoming, so he devises this game. You know the plot. I personally really like Pouf. I think that he is a very fascinating character in how much he spirals when his deity, when his leader, when the person that he looks up to more than anyone else starts changing, that he completely spirals and resists that change and starts fighting against it and trying to even manipulate the one that he believes is the greatest and doesn't deserve to be questioned. He starts manipulating and lying to force his personality back in the direction that he thinks it should go in. And I just think that he's a fascinating character. And then couple that with the way Meruem changes so much as he's gaining his memories back little by little up until the point where Wulfen actually says Komugi's name. He's letting his guard keep their secrets from him because he trusts them more than he's offended that they wouldn't tell him everything, when a few hours ago he would kill someone if they so much as questioned him. Now he's letting his guard openly keep secrets from him for a period of time. When Wulfen tells him Komugi's name and he remembers, he tells Wulfen, I hope you accomplish your dreams. His dream is to become human again. His dream is to regain his humanity and reject his anthood. And King doesn't care. That's extermination. You deserve to die for that, according to the king that was alive a few hours ago. But now, as Meruem, he says, I hope you accomplish your dreams. I hope you get what you're looking for. He sets Knuckle and Morel free, who have been captives, who are captives, who can be used as bartering chips, who can be tortured for information, who can just be killed and turned into puppets like Kite was. He says, set him free. He has that line where he says his guards are too good for him, after he has openly believed that he is better than everyone, including his own mother who birthed him from the moment he was born. And then in the end, when he wants to spend his last few hours with the person he cares about most, he could easily just do that. He could easily just have that time with her and then not tell her that she's gonna die too, because he's selfish. But he doesn't. He tells her, if you stay with me, you will die with me. And she chooses to stay with him, but he took a big risk in doing that. And that final scene with them, when he loses his sight and he's just repeatedly asking her, are you still there? Are you still there? Just hold my hand. Just let me know that you're still here. That fear and that desperation of just wanting to spend his final moments with her, I just didn't expect to have so many complex feelings around a character that has committed such atrocious crimes. Atrocious is the word. Who's committed such atrocious crimes. And here I am having just a million different thoughts about him. But his personal arc is incredible. It's wild. When he finally gets to tell her his name, which he's fought so hard to learn just so he could tell her, this whole thing is nothing like what I thought it would be, from the protagonist throwing everything away for revenge and the antagonist throwing everything away for a relationship, for a person that he cares about. It's very different from what I thought. And the individual arcs that each character, again, it's too much for one video. The individual arcs that each character goes through, just speaking about the antagonist, from Yuli, who was all about protecting the king. His only goal was to take down anyone that could be a threat to the king. And then in his fights, he learns to have an appreciation and respect for his enemies and learns compassion and honor. And this character that was all about strength and about defeating anyone that comes in his path, he dies weak and pathetic. Pitou, who took so much joy in playing with their prey and creating puppets so they could play and play again, ends up devoting their life to protecting one and then dies as prey. Pouf, who couldn't handle the changes in his king and who desperately needed him to be this image of the king instead of what he was as a person, and who spiraled terribly with every change that came, and even tried to lie and manipulate his leader, who he believed to be the one deserving of making all decisions and leading all. He tried to be the manipulator of him and tried to meld himself to him, and yet he died with his king being someone that he didn't even know, and he died alone. Not to mention characters like Knuckle, who we've already discussed, who came completely full circle in his own ideologies, and Gon, who completely lost himself in what it costs to be in this war. And I haven't even mentioned characters like Palm, who had an amazing story all on her own, from being changed by the ants too, and fighting against that and gaining her own agency back and continuing to work with the team and being one of the most essential players in them succeeding. Killua calling her his friend. He now has 2 friends other than Gon, and I'm so proud of him. Her speech to Killua when Killua collapses and he's like, I can't get through to him, I can't help him, and Palm says he needs you more than anyone else. Her telling Killua, promising him, don't worry, I will keep a hold of Komugi, I will not let her go into the enemy's hands. And then whenever Meruem comes to her and humbly begs, please give her to me, and Palm apologizes, I'm sorry, Killua, and she hands her over because she sees how much Meruem has changed. Welthin, who was reminded of his past and openly turned against the ants, even in front of Meruem himself. Ikago, whose first instinct is to run and protect himself, but instead he chooses to continually put himself in danger for this cause that they're fighting for, and even has that amazing line where he says that he would rather die than to betray his friends. And he's the one who reminds Welthin of his past self and turns him to their side. Welthin questioning himself before he makes the change, before he turns over to our side, actually asking himself, am I on the right side? Not to mention scenes like Killua waiting in the hospital hallway crying over Gon, and then telling, I think it was Morel, telling him, I will save him, which is so similar to what Gon said about Kite, and I worry about him. We have that amazing scene where Ruma, was that her name? Where Colt's sister returns back home, and the village is not so sure about them at first, but when her mom recognizes her and fully embraces her, that this village accepts the ants wholeheartedly into their community, into their home, into their family again, and being able to see the humans and the ants being able to live together, and so much more. So much more. This is not a straightforward story. This is not a straightforward discussion that's happened here. This is a story where the evil ants go through their own individual arcs, and some of them turn out better on the other side, and where we have our protagonist who we naturally assume are going to be the heroes of the story. Some of them come out good and some of them don't. Some of them spiral. This is a story where a lot of really complex things are being discussed, and it's not black and white, and it's not here's your answer. It's rather, let's talk about some really complicated things. This is a story that I feel like I could so easily just sit down and discuss for hours because of the amount of depth that's in just these small little scenes, let alone the big major themes. It's really incredible. I mean, it was action-packed, it was emotional, it was surprising, it was all the great buzzwords to make a good story, but it was also so deep and rich, and I'm just, all my expectations. I mean, I tell you, I started Hunter x Hunter, and I started getting comments from the very first video that I posted saying, can't wait for Chimera and arc. So I knew that it was a hyped arc, but even with all the hype, I could not have, it was underhyped. It was underhyped. Even though it got all the hype in the world, it was underhyped. So that's my review for the last part of Chimera and arc. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to continue the discussion with me in the comments. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I post reading vlogs on the second channel on Thursdays. I'll see you again soon. Bye.